Hello, thank you so much for coming to the Sashiko Live Streaming. Sorry that I was a little late. Whew. I had a little meeting before this, so just let me check everything. I think it's on. There we go. All right. Thank you so much for coming to the Sashiko Live Streaming. This is Atsushi, and this is the Sashiko Live Streaming where I talk about Sashiko while doing the Sashiko stitching. I hope that audio is good. It's good. This is not a lecture or tutorial, so I'm not gonna talk about some technical things. Instead, I will focus on the cultural stories behind Sashiko and also around Sashiko. So your request for the topics are always welcome. Appreciate it. If you can bring some of your Sashiko stitching project to stitch along, that's awesome too. Few announcement. Few announcement. One is that I will be in Brooklyn, New York, around Dumbo area next weekend, not this coming weekend, next weekend, August 3rd and 4th, Saturday and Sunday. I will be doing the workshop in the Saori weaving studio, Loop of the Room, and there will be a trunk sale available on those 2 days, and you can come and I might not be able to available until 4 o'clock, but if you can visit, that's great. I hope I can say hello to you. After 4 o'clock, I should be able to talk, and those 2 days are available. The first day, corn essence is already filled out, and second day, application practice requires the corn essence. So if you really would like to take the corn essence on the second day, please consider taking the online class. We still have 1 week, and a week is enough to clear the prerequisite. I'll do everything to clear that. So that's the weekend, next week's plan. I should be able to do the live streaming on Thursday. I won't be traveling until Friday, so I should be able to do the live streaming next week too. And one more thing is that I am planning another Sashiko Japan Tour in 2025. The Sashiko Japan Tour 2024 has been fixed, and I am preparing for that. At the same time, I keep receiving a lot of requests for organizing another one in 2025. For the details, please check the description area, and there's a link for that. And I cannot promise at this moment that I will be able to offer that again, but at the same time, your preference will help me out to organize another another Japan tour, so another Sashiko Japan Tour. So please take a look at that. All right, that being said, let's move to the actual stitching. Hello. Thank you so much for coming. Yep, hi, hello, good evening. Yuri-san, thank you for coming. Sashiko-san, thank you for coming. Shinobu-san, thank you so much for coming. Chasing a thread. Hello and good evening. Working on some running stitch on Sashiko cloth, white cloth with a rainbow thread for the interest. And Jocelyn, thank you so much for coming. Hello, I will be attending the Dumbo class, and I'm very excited. I attended the first one this past January. Welcome back. Welcome back, Jocelyn. I'll see you there on Sunday. We will do a little bit different things from the first day. I hope you have the same. Where is my thimble? Just give me a second, okay? There we go. So I brought a topic today about slowness. This topic I sort of made it up a few days ago, or even last week. After this live streaming, I kind of made it up that I hope that I could talk about it. I can find many articles online right now about they often mention ancient Japan, or like learning from Japanese Edo period, which is about a few hundred years ago, 400 years ago. So, and the approach is that there are many things that we as a, as the people who live in this 2025 can learn from their practice. And it is very true that their lifestyle in Japan in that era, Edo period in Edo, right now Tokyo, their lifestyle was quite sustainable. That's the life under the national isolation, and they sustain their life, society for that matter, without any trade or any interaction with other countries. So it is really true that we can learn a lot of things from their values, philosophy, or mindset. At the same time, when it comes to Sashiko, I cannot speak on behalf of other things. Like some people say that we can learn from kintsugi or we can learn from something else. But when it comes to Sashiko, I can say that what they're trying to get out of it is a little twisted already. Even on the BBC, there was an article about it, yet they are writing the article based on the information they can find on the internet, or talking to somebody who think they know about Sashiko, but not really. So, well, that's kind of easy information source. So it is my intention and my hope to leave as much story voice as possible on the internet, so when they are interested in the like real stories, they can come to this channel or the actual voice. Hello, Lake-san, thank you so much for coming. But after I kind of set up that topic, I had a bump in my days. I felt under the weather for a while, and it comes and goes, and I don't know how to explain that quite well. I don't think it's kind of depression, but I felt under the, it's dark. It's not as sunny. It's really cloudy, and mushy. It's really difficult to explain that, but it's not a pleasant feeling. And I was talking to my friend Tai, and I tried my best to explain that with analogy, and I made that analogy today as the Instagram post, slightly different from what I told Tai. But that analogy is probably a good explanation to be on the same page. And for many people, Sashiko is not significant. Sashiko is just one word, or one practice, or one stitchery. And running stitch itself did exist many culture. So for many people, it's really nothing. And for me, it is also nothing for that matter. It's very much my ordinary. But the point is that the ordinary is very different based on where and when, and probably who as well. It's kind of a repetition of my Instagram, but the analogy I used was a small village. that I grew up with. Not I, but he. I used he as the analogy person. But what I feel right now in the change of Sashiko is that someone rebuilding the village, small village that I grew up with, to some result. The result itself is not the matter of good or bad. It's, we enjoy that. But it's more like the result where they kind of scrap and rebuild the old houses, old scenery to redefine, revalue what they can offer as the package of result. And it's not my house, it's not my property. I don't own that community, I don't own that village, but I have a strong sense of belongings. I have a strong sense of my identity to that village. And as much as it is good for the village to have a new result idea, and some people are happy with them, at the same time, as the one who lived, as the one who grew up in that village, I have a very strange, and it's often negative and frustration, kind of close to frustration, to see those old houses tear down or rebuild to something different completely based on the value that I understand, but I do not agree when they commercialize it as the Japan or like the Japanese village. So it's extreme analogy. It's not happening anymore. It's not actually happening, but that's how I feel about Sashiko and this trend. And there's no way to stop it. There's no way to stop that big capitalist bringing a lot of money to the resort when they decided to make the resort in that area, in that village. There's no way to stop it. And only things I can do as the person who has the identity with their village is to share the stories so that those guests to the resort may be interested in learning what happened there, on top of, along to the kind of vacation they decided to have. Vacation itself is great, attraction itself is great. I just want them to sort of acknowledge the future abandoned places, because they redefine their village with their own profit and convenience. So Sashiko introduced in English, or Sashiko, well, taught in English right now, are the kind of result. They focus on the attraction, they focus on the entertainment. So there's nothing wrong with that. At the same time, they focus on the result too much that they are losing the cultural significance. Yet they're selling their vacation package as the cultural experience. So that's kind of like a discrepancy, or even like, this is a strong word, but it's kind of fraud to me, because they're advertising something false information. If it's not false, it's exaggeration. So I have to see it changing it, and I do not mind the change itself. If everybody decided that the village needs or will be the result, I am kind of okay with that. But at the same time, if they're gonna change the village to the resort for the vacation destination, either they change it completely, or if they're gonna use some of the stories behind it, some of the name for that to sell better, I want them to be more sincere. And for that honest, right now it's very in between. It's really picking a good portion of everywhere. It's like a picking everything good from every aspect. And they're mixing that as a one package, which probably can sell better. And I don't feel comfortable. I don't like to see that. It's someone changing the color of your house, repainting your house without without you agreeing with it. Well, the house is more like a property, so it's not the exact analogy, but someone changing the culture. Change itself is great, but the change is very, very important based on who does it and how they approach it. Right now, I do not appreciate the approach to the change, especially when they sort of teach Sashiko with strong word. Strong word here is like you can learn everything about Sashiko here, or this is the one stop for all learning. Those are false information. There's no such a thing as one stop for all Sashiko. It's purely impossible to do that. And there's no such a thing as like comprehensive Sashiko learning. It's a lifelong continuous learning. If the goal is to master full picture of Sashiko, I don't think I can do that. I know what I know, and I'm very much aware with what I can teach, what I can consider as the master. But that's very, very one part of the village, not a village, one part of the Sashiko. So it's gonna be a long journey, because I have to see it. I have to see it going down. You don't want to see that going down, but there's no choice. There's no choice. I have to see it. And when I see it, it drags me down to the, frustration with those negative feelings. Sometimes I think it's okay to feel negative like that. Once again, this is not the message to deliver to you who are listening to this right now, because you're not really changing anything. You may be changing Sashiko, but you're changing Sashiko with mindfulness and acknowledgement. So it does not really... you are not the cause of my frustration or pain at all. No matter what kind of Sashiko you do, or no matter what kind of different type of Sashiko you do, or no matter how big or small of your stitches, no matter how uneven it is, it's not really the critical point. The critical point, bottleneck, is those who kind of define the answer of Sashiko without involving other Japanese Sashiko artisans who have been practicing Sashiko for a long time. And you may be surprised, well, are there such a people actually? And the answer is yes. That's why I'm suffering. So they're not they're not learning from the Japanese philosophy, for that matter. It's not sustainable. Their approach is scrap and rebuild. By saying that there's one stop for all, that phrase itself is making the practice non-sustainable. So they are not learning anything from the Edo period. They are actually deceiving others that they can represent themselves from the... this might be a little strong word, but they pretend that they are learning. They pretend that they are kind of masters, but they are not. I mean, you know, how one can be the master without being there. And you know, I have been saying this kind of strong word for a few years by now. I think I've been saying the same thing for a few years. So if they have a problem, they can come to me and talk to me, but they don't come because either they find me less significant or too too problematic to talk about. So they don't want to have the argument. They don't want to have a discussion on that. So they ignore it. And that ignorance will change the culture. And that's what's ongoing. That's what's happening right now. I think many Western folks would love to learn from more Japanese teachers, but the language barrier, ability to travel, contribute to the divide in accessibility. Yes, it is really true that two factors, language barrier and also the distance. So, but at the same time, those two can be very much taken away. One, there are many Japanese Sashiko stitchers who are stitching in Japan, and they share their opinion, they share something on the social media, and we can always use the machine translation right now. And you don't have to go there because we can communicate over the internet. So internet will solve those problems. One thing though, it's extra steps. It's more time consuming. It's more challenging. It's more uncomfortable. It's not gonna give them the instant gratification because they have to research, they have to go through many steps to get information. Especially Japanese don't offer the answers so easily. So it's going to be quite unpleasant, maybe unpleasant experience. So it is very true that language and also physical distance can be the issue. And just for those who like to learn what Sashiko is, I think it is okay to just learn whatever available in English and in any other language is perfectly fine. But when they are planning to teach, teaching comes with a responsibility, and teaching requires a lot of commitment, in my understanding. So when they decided to teach, those are the just excuse. Those are the just excuse to not to do enough or even publish. When they decided to publish the article, books, anything where the other people can read or comment and learn from. And of course, teaching is another form of sort of publishing it, their opinions, where they can learn from. When it comes to those kind of communicating to others or speaking on behalf, let's say that publishing and teaching is similar to speaking on behalf of the culture, then it's gonna be I just find it very childish excuse. Again, when you just would like to learn, would like to enjoy Sashiko, just want to try it out, you would like to, practice Sashiko, apply Sashiko, learn Sashiko, don't worry about the language barrier or distance. As much as I appreciate you learning from Japanese, it is very time consuming. It is very difficult to go through that. Even with the help of internet and social media, it is very time consuming and tiring. So I appreciate their interest more than the actual barriers or challenges. But that's only for those who wish to learn, who wish to enjoy. for them or for their community, for their family. It will become completely different story when they decided to make money by teaching on behalf of the other Sashiko Japanese artisans. Then they have to be able to speak on behalf. Like literally they have to be able to speak on behalf. For that, the language and the distance cannot be the excuse to not to learn. So, but again, you can find so many teachers, and probably they don't even speak Japanese, right? Yet they consider themselves as the masters. That's a little, it's a little irony. I used to get a lot of challenge, not recently at all, not last few years, but I used to have a lot, I don't know why I stopped having those, but on the Instagram, on the Facebook, I had a lot of I don't want to call them trolls, but I used to receive a lot of kind of challenging comment that I have to defend myself. The last 7 years, though, interestingly, none of the challenge was done in Japanese. None. No challenge was made in Japanese language. Everything was in English. And the more those conversation goes, disagreement goes, at some point we have to agree to disagree because of the cultural difference. But those discussion goes, I still, I really wonder that why am I the one who is changing, who is using the second language to defend my own culture? And I still don't know that. So, well, I hope that I'm offering enough opportunity to learn. Especially if you're new to Sashiko, my contents on this YouTube and website, Instagram, and also I teach online and also in-person workshop. I have a domestic course to start with. Those are pretty rich content at this moment after 7 years of me building it. So it might not be comfortable though. It might be different from what you learn already, because the Sashiko introduced in English right now is quite simplified and quite modified to meet the need in the market. Well, I mean, it's really a natural thing. You have to modify the product to meet the market. We call it marketing, so we have to really do that. But that changed the actual item itself. So they consider Sashiko as the product, and then in order to sell it, they have to modify the product. I don't modify that. I also sell that. I make money out of it. So I'm not accusing for selling things. I'm accusing for selling after unnecessary modification, because, I mean, to meet their profit. So I try to sell it, offer it with as less modification as possible. It's impossible to avoid all the modification because it goes through me. Some of the requests I receive is that they want to hear some other Japanese people's voice on top of my voice, and that's very understandable. I agree with them. I wish I could bring their voice. But it's not that easy to do it because, again, then the language barriers kicks in, and also the location barriers kicks in. They're not ready to speak up. Speaking up is not very Japanese or even Sashiko things to do, for that matter. So it kind of takes a lot of convincing to do it, and it's more challenging to do it on the internet to the anonymous majority that I'm doing right now. It's really unlikely to happen. One of the answer to that request to listen to other people's voice is the Japan tour, because I am arranging a lot of opportunity to meet up the Sashiko masters in Japan and Sashiko artisans in Japan. They don't have the ability to talk in English or speak up in English. But by seeing each other, by people stitching together, they can share a lot of stories. And I am trying to offer that as much as I can. Would you consider the mindset toward the practice more important versus the authenticity of the materials? The question is more my thought versus expectation and answer. Let me read that again. Would you consider the mindset toward the practice more important versus the authenticity of the material? The question is more my thoughts. I think that is not the question of versus. You were saying that mindset toward the practice or authenticity of toward the materials. Those are kind of together. The mindset toward the practice include the respect to the authenticity of the materials. It's not requirement. Authenticity of the materials is a little bit tricky. I'm not gonna say that if you don't use the Sashiko threads, Sashiko needle, it's not Sashiko. It can be Sashiko, but at the same time, not choosing the Sashiko materials, Sashiko tools, can destroy that sustainability of that culture. I sometimes call it cultural sustainability. What I mean is that there's always a supply chain behind the culture. For example, there are thread manufactured to make the thread, this specific thread, for the purpose of Sashiko. By one saying that we can use any thread for Sashiko, which is correct, which is truth in the sentence itself, but by someone outside of Japan saying that the cultural sustainability can be destroyed by ignorance. If it's intentional change, that's different, but that's complete ignorance because they don't know it. They don't know some other things exist. And I think that respect or even acknowledgement to the sustainability behind that word, culture, is the mindset. And it's not or, it's just both comes together. If I were to change your question, I'm sorry if I change your question too much, but if you ask me to the mindset versus result, that's a very difficult, good question to. I personally prefer focusing on the mindset first and then result comes after that. Kind of result kind of follows. But I think Sashiko teaching in English is more like a result base because that's what they care. That's what the market care. That's why you have a lot of, rules. You have to make rice grain size stitches. Now, I have never heard of that rules, but it seems like some legends are teaching that. I don't know what kind of legend they're. I have never seen any legend teaching that kind of thing. And authenticity changes over time and depends on the Sashiko you practice, that authenticity change. So the Sashiko we practice has our authenticity, which is probably different from other Sashiko. And the analogy is that authentic pizza in Chicago is deep dish, and the authentic pizza in New York is the thin crispy crust. Both can be authenticity, but different. And, both of them are pizza, and probably they have to define each other. But the worst things we can do to those two different pizza is that we don't saying like we don't care the difference. If we taste, it's the same. If we eat in the stomach, it's the same thing. So who cares? That statement itself is true, right? Like if we eat, it's gonna be in the stomach anyway, so it's the same thing. But that's a little too violent when we talk about culture. And probably information itself is not available, that there are so many types of sashiko. They are focusing on one type of sashiko as the answer because that's how they market it. That's how teachers teach. If they define their sashiko as the only one sashiko, of course it's easier to teach. Of course it's easier to navigate. And if my goal was just to make money, I would do that. The same thing. That's like marketing 101. But it's gonna just destroy the culture. Not a change, destroy. That's a two different. It is perfectly fine to change the culture. Culture is supposed to change. Without change, the culture doesn't exist. But it's not even change. It's destroying, scrapping it. Distraction? No. I used to use the word simplification, but not. Yeah, simplification is right, but sometimes it can be more than simplification. It can be more kind of violent for that. I feel quite violent on what they do. Again, they're defining the culture that they don't know. That's a little too scary. Like, I speak English, I live in the United States, but I dare not to define the culture that I live in. I am learning I'm trying to learn it by I am doing my best. I think I'm doing my best to learn it because it's my daughter's culture. But after 10, 12 years of living here, the more I live here, the more I don't know. So it's really outside of my imagination, for that matter, that they can define someone's culture so easily without, well, in fact, because they don't know the culture, they can define so easily. Probably that's the case. But yeah, it's if it's not my issue, it can be interesting. Because it's my issue, it's not really interesting. It's really frustrating at some point. Thank you for addressing my question even at all. I am a white woman in the USA. It has been easy to find basic technical information, but it's the cultural discussion on that part when not in person. It does not matter who you are for that. Like, doesn't really. I really appreciate the interest in learning that. One thing I wanted to kind of keep in your mind, or anybody in this like live streaming right now, is that the learning you are getting in English is already the result of modification. That's why I keep saying like Sashiko in English is, it is too late to introduce the Sashiko in English. I often say that. It's too different right now. So the information you got, you define that as the easy to find basic technical information. They are not wrong, probably, but they're not the whole picture, or probably, most likely, they're missing the most delicious part of that practice. Therefore, I keep teaching, because I know that they are not really covering the whole picture. In order to cover the whole picture, one wouldn't say that it's that easy to find. So I'm kind of not judging, I'm kind of assuming, imagining, so correct, I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but there are a lot of things, there are more things than what is introduced right now. And the cultural part of the practice is, of course, difficult to find because there are not that many Japanese who can speak English. in this practice, I might be the first one who can speak up without a translator from the brain while practicing it. I might be the first one. So it is difficult. At the same time, please, keep in mind and also try to share with others that the the information, technical information, techniques, how to do it, those information available online in English are not wrong, but not enough. They're quite insufficient. And sometimes it's wrong too. Like, I still cannot believe that people discuss the rice grain size and when nobody cares about the rice grain size in my Sashiko practice, including the Sashiko artisans we grew up with and any student I have taught Sashiko to. If they care about the rice grain size of stitches after my workshop, that's not their problem. That's my problem as the teacher. So I feel responsible to offer the same experience again to them because I clearly failed teaching something very important. I clearly failed the teaching that I promised. So if you're watching this and if you still care about the size of stitches as the rice grain size, then please let me know. I will. Let's do something to fix that. Stitches like mixed grain, right? Well, it won't be like that all different, but that's kind of like a standard. Hey, it's a long way to go. And I hope, though, I'm kind of somewhat explaining the difficulties I'm experiencing. It's really like, it's crazy to see that how information spreads so fast, so easily, even if it's kind of like wrong information. It's so fascinating how fast that spread. I think that's what internet is good at, spreading without, it does not matter if it's right or wrong, to be honest. Those information, its value is not if it's right or wrong or good or bad or it's authentic or not. The value system of those spreading information is if it's comfortable or not, if it's clean or not, if it's positive enough or not. And ultimately speaking, if it's most suitable to the question and answer they would like to get or not. So if the answer or information is not what they expect or what they want to hear, then that spreading is not going to happen. It's just gonna stay one place. So in order to make that spread happen, we, or those who sell, modify the package itself. Unfortunately, I don't do that because I have something else to focus on. I have different priorities. But if their goal is to just make money, they don't have the standard to They don't have anything to protect for that matter. They use Sashiko to make money. They consider Sashiko as a vehicle to reach to that goal. I consider opposite. Profit or money is the vehicle for me to reach to the goal of Sashiko. Yeah, there are a lot of things we have to do. It's so hot. Sashiko was a practice in the winter, and it still is, I guess. Well, I mean, nobody does Sashiko for to pay their bill, I guess. I hope. I mean, I don't know anybody who makes their ends meet by just doing Sashiko, even in Japan. They kind of have to sell supplies, items, or even teaching or publishing. Those extra income will probably make the ends meet somehow. But it was the work, stitchery for the winter, and summer is not the best time. And you know, we have a technology, we have like a very good technology to make the summer to the winter-ish. We call it AC, right? AC, or you know, central system, whatever you call it. Unfortunately, I don't have it here. I like low tech. I have a dehumidifier running with the fan around, so it's quite hot. Yeah, I think this trend of let's learn something from Japanese culture will continue. When we focus on slowness, or, well, that's probably the issue, the problem of another Japanese word, wabi-sabi, or zen. They're quite misunderstood. They were quite violently misused by marketing. So it's not what it is. It's not what you think it is in most cases. I'm open to discussion. So, you know, if you think you're the master of wabi-sabi, or, you know, if you're the master of kintsugi, or another word, like whatever you want to discuss, I'm happy to bring it up. But because of those, like a slow concept, well, Zen actually, Zen or wabi-sabi, those slow concept, it's not really slow, but it looks slow. It's more like content. And they think that there's something we can learn from, and they are probably. But when they write those articles, they probably filter that information to match to the needs of the audience in English. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what media is all about. That's what writing. Like you cannot write. They cannot write anything without thinking about the readers. That's just the if they don't care, that's just a blog. So it's really not their problem. So I'm not really accusing or criticizing those media for those who write it. I'm just criticizing those who intentionally modify the word to make their activities more comfortable or easy. So don't mix the word of Zen or wabi-sabi or other Japanese word and Sashiko together. Usually they don't match. Like if somebody starts saying like Zen wabi-sabi, that does not make sense at all. It's really too much. And mixing that Sashiko and those concepts are going to be the same thing. It's too much information. So, okay, After this much thread, I will log off. I have been talking for 1 hour-ish, roughly 50 minutes. And it's a little too hot today to keep stitching, so if you're watching this as the archive, I come back on this Thursday night every week, unless I have a workshop planned. Next week I do have a workshop in Danville, Brooklyn, but I probably, most likely, start traveling on Friday to meet to the Saturday workshop. So Saturday night, I mean not Saturday, Thursday night is a good, still I'm here, I will be here. So I should be able to do the same time. If you have any, not a question, but a request for me to talk about any topic is fine, as long as it's not the request for me to teach you something specific. I don't teach anything on the live streaming to be fair with other people and to avoid any misleading the information. I want to be responsible in what I teach. So, okay, that being said, I think, well, I'll show you what I've been working on. It's really the same thing, so it's probably boring for many people at this moment. I hope I can finish it by the end of this year. I will stop doing this at some point, so like I have to focus on another project that I keep saying to complete it by this summer. It has been a year and a half that I keep saying I will complete it by this summer. So next month I will shift it to that project. So I will get out of this, and then I will probably come back to this toward the end of this year, I guess. But yeah, I use the 5 kinds of the variegated color thread I have. We sell that thread. That's the Sashiko thread. We asked them to make it for this Sashiko practice. It's one of the, not one, it's the best Sashiko thread we use. And those are the 3 thread, you know, green. And those are 3 skeins that I am using. I just cover that with the, I just bundle them. This is the green, and this is the rainbow, pink, reddish, blue, white, and it's more like 3 prime color, I would say. Red, green, and yellow. It's a lot of stitching, as you can tell. I don't know if I like it, but I said that I don't probably like it on my Instagram. I said I don't probably like this. Not a probably. I don't like it as of now, but I don't know if I like it in the future. Let's see how it's gonna change. Okay. One last thing. Please, I have a nice, like I have a very big fan that he or she keeps disliking pretty much everything I upload. He or she comes to my video every time I upload, so probably he or she is the biggest fan for this live streaming or even videos. But anyway, because of that, I would like to try to make sure that I have a good good percentage, like percentage on the Instagram, not Instagram, on this YouTube channel. So if you could click that good button, that's really appreciated. It's gonna help me to maintain the like a percentage of that good ratio. Okay, it's almost 10 o'clock. I hope to see you next week around this time. Not around this time. I come at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and I hope that I can continue another hour or so next week as well. And if you're watching this as the archive, your request are much appreciated, and please leave the comments on that. Sorry, please leave that request on the comment section so that I can bring to the next session. All right, I hope you have a good night, and I hope you enjoy another stitching, continue stitching. Have a good night. Bye bye.